Welcome back. Today, we're looking at getting our house protected from the major elements of winter: the snow, the wind, and for some people, the cold. So let's get into it. In the last video, we left you, hopefully longing for more, as Alila and I finished getting our roof sheathing into place. Our next big tackle was to get our windows in place. Now, off camera, for the bulk of it, I struggled to get several different flashing tapes to stick to our ICF blocks as I tried to make some flashed sill pans. The blocks do not require, and some literature would even discourage, the use of house wraps. The EPS foam is our weather-resistant barrier. But the pacing of doing this all ourselves means the blocks have taken a little more sun than they might have with a larger, more professional crew just cranking away at the job. And that means there's a slight degradation in the holding ability of the UV-touched surface layer. That is kind of a long-winded way of saying the tapes didn't stick very well. I called some of the manufacturers who told me I didn't need to prime the block. Other representatives of the same company said I absolutely needed to prime the blocks. Well, it turns out good old zip tape just sticks. Scuff up the surface layer just a little bit with the nylon brush, tape it, and then proceed. Anyway, we got all our windows in place with a couple of friends helping, but these large feature windows in the front were a little bit of a different beast. Luckily, we aren't above asking some local contractors for help where we do need it. They had a good platform scaffold that was just the right height and a couple of strong backs to help lift. Except that there was actually supposed to be 3 of them on site, and these windows are over 220 pounds each, so when one of them didn't show up, it meant I was helping the help that I paid for. Long story short, these hang much like any other window, and once we got them settled in, everything was just fine. And unlike the entry door you see in the middle, I would absolutely recommend and repeat the purchase of these Marvin windows. Around the rest of the house, we did the more economical Essential line, but these front windows had that tapered top, and it was outside the dimensions possible with that more cost-effective line. So these are the Marvin Ultimate Series up on our front feature wall here, and while they definitely cost more, we don't regret it for even a moment. Getting back to that entry door, while beautiful, is actually non-functional as you see it here. As good of an experience as we had with Marvin, we had the exact opposite when dealing with this door company. Imagine paying $8,000 for a door that just doesn't work. We went back and forth with the sales rep and the factory multiple times to confirm our dimensions and that the as-built condition would support our extra wide with the side lights. We were assured, left, right, up, and down, that they do this all the time. Well, it turns out they were full of it, and it took 2.5 months to get a tech out to look at it, only to hear him say they would never authorize a door to be built like this, while actively looking at the door that they did, in fact, build that way. It took several more months for them to finally agree to build a new frame, except that they would only do the frame, and we had to reuse the slab, the seals, and all of the hardware. And it didn't even come right then, but we did finally get the door in after winter. So while you won't see that here, it was finally good enough. Anyway, while we've been watching the windows here, you might have noticed we also have a crew working on that center roof section. We decided to go with EPDM roofing, and that was something I didn't really feel super confident on, particularly because it was cooling off in the fall and we were losing our temperature window to make sure that glue was sticking. This section turned out okay, but it cost us over $8,800 for just under 600 square feet. Well, after watching these guys and doing the application, which was fine, we decided we could do the rest ourselves. And so we did. The rest of our almost 4,000 square feet of roof cost us only $200 more than the installed section did. And after being quoted almost 60 grand for the same company to do the rest of the roof, we decided it was worth the risk, but that will probably be a different video. Because you'll notice we've got some synthetic underlayment to shed water for now, and I still need to button up the garage and some of the other air leaks, and at least get a little bit of a windbreak and heat retention for the winter. So my priorities are going to shift, and let's go take a look at that. Now, in the garage, I started with some plastic on the walls just as a windbreak. Really, in a hopeful state that this whole project would have gone a lot faster and we'd have been closed in already. But as with most projects, I forgot to account for that one really minor annoying thing: reality, where everything takes twice as long as you plan for. But we're now into the start of November here, and the temperatures are regularly in the 40s. So I need something a little bit more robust to protect from the winter winds, as I do plan to work through this winter pulling wires, ductwork, plumbing, and some of the other interior items. Now, Alila and I talk regularly about how my body is built a little bit more for a northern climate, and working in these temperatures genuinely bothers me very little. But the wind can still sap the energy pretty quickly if you're not careful, and we still have another 40 to 50 degrees of bottom end that can fall out as we clear the new year. So I'm hanging a layer of drywall in the garage to serve as a barrier for that wind, with the added benefit I can add a lockable door and will be reasonably secured for winter work. It really is getting a little tiring to drag all of my tools out from the barn and back to the barn every workday, and now I'll be able to sleep a little bit better if I leave some items in the house. Now, in order to help me accomplish this work alone, as Alila's physiology is a little less Midwest winter and a little bit more too hot for most human life, I am using a couple of 2x4s to help support the panel while I get it screwed into place. And this may look pretty clunky. I promise there's a reason for that, which is that I've never used an actual drywall screw gun before. But knowing I have 200 some odd sheets to hang for this house, I decided it was a good time for a purpose-built tool. Now, I've done large drywall jobs before with impact drivers, and even with those dedicated drywall bits, but I've never really been able to find the consistency of depth to make the finishing steps any easier. It was a longer learning curve than I thought it would be with this tool, but I do get the hang of the screw gun as I move along, except for when I miss. Now, I'm not as good as most, and I do miss on occasion. And using a drywall screw gun relies a little bit on forward pressure, which is not helpful in reverse. Maybe there's a trick to it, and if one of you knows it, share it in the comments. But as far as I'm concerned, thus far, these screw guns shouldn't even have a reverse gear built in. But slow and steady, panel by panel, I do get my windbreak in. Well, at least high enough for now. And although a little shorter on the update this week, that's going to be where I wrap up this video. However, in the near term, I have started to record a little less in time-lapse, so I'm going to be able to show a little more detail on how I'm dealing with the ICFs and with how we planned some of our other behind-the-wall stuff. So hit that subscribe button down below if you want to follow along with how we dealt with some of the quirks of this build. But until then, thanks for checking in.